In front of the crystal are symbols that represent 12 of the major world's religions, and that includes independent spiritual path, atheism, and all others. And then there's a center crystal, and underneath it are the Reiki symbols, and around it is an inscription. And the inscription says, "May the followers of the world's religions and spiritual paths work together to create peace among all people on earth." So the photo underneath is an image of one of the 6 peace grids that William took to the North Pole. So he made 6 of them, and he took one to the North Pole. This started in the late 1990s. Then he took one to the South Pole, one is in the Reiki Center in Michigan. One is on the wall of the Temple of Solomon in a gallery in the Old City in Jerusalem. And one is in Hana, Hawaii. And one is now recently was placed on Mount Karama in the main temple. So anyway, there's many, many uses for these. And as we are talking about tools that you have, I'm taking these off because they have people's names on them. But essentially what I do is use this, and you can put names on it, and the crystals are all programmed to send continuous Reiki. So I think, what was it, a couple months ago, we talked about how to imbue objects with Reiki. And so we have that on our YouTube channel. But everything here on this grid is charged to send continuous Reiki. And you can see I'm sitting right here. And so it's here with me, and it's one of the ways I receive continuous Reiki. But I put people's names on the grid, and it sends continuous Reiki, or I use it for animals or world events, or I just moved, so I didn't bring my bowl yet, but I typically keep a bowl underneath it, and that's where I can put things for myself, affirmations, things I want to send Reiki to, for maybe even goals, or just to send it to myself all day, send it to others, and I can put those names in the bowl, and then the crystals and the grid are charging it. In addition, once a month, William hosts not hosts because it's for everybody to do independently, but has a world peace meditation. And over 400,000 people have registered for that. So around the world, every month, it's usually the second Wednesday of the month, around 7:30 in your time zone, you spend about 10 or 15 minutes just sending Reiki to the peace grids around the world. And then all the individual peace grids, because so many people have grids and crystal grids, and they don't have to be on these peace grids to be a grid or, activated for peace. So anyway, it really is a significant tool that I use. And another thing we were going to talk about today is remembering Reiki on the fly. And so you can see all the different ways that Reiki can work for us. And we have a variety of tools. We have a variety of techniques that we can use in order to manage life. And I know a lot of times when people receive Reiki training, the focus is on how do we give Reiki to others, and maybe also, in your particular class, the focus is on self-Reiki. But Reiki is so much more than just in that moment. I truly use Reiki just as my life management. Of course, I do sessions, I receive sessions, but I also use Reiki like right now where everything is so busy and, very aware of the holidays. And Robyn was going to talk about the duality and, like particularly at this time of year and everything that's going on, that it is a time of duality. And so we've been talking about kindness all month and how it's a specific frequency. And it's a specific frequency that is life force. It is something that Reiki can actually empower within you. And it can be more than a feeling. It is more than a feeling. It goes so much deeper than that. And the frequency of kindness is something that we can actually receive with Reiki, even if we're not feeling kind. It can also clarify what kindness is in any given situation, because I used to associate, kindness with always being nice. And, it is that too. But at the same time, there are times that kindness has an authority and something needs to be spoken. So it has so many meanings, and those are a lot associated with the mind and thoughts and actions. But the frequency of kindness is actually a life force energy. It is within us. It's part of our human nature. People love deeply, care for one another deeply. And at the same time, we have a dual nature, and there can be things that trigger us and make it very difficult to either experience some of these frequencies like kindness or to feel kind or be able to even act kind. So in this duality, actually, Robyn, I'm going to go ahead and have you pop in here about the duality, because she had some really great thoughts around it too, that I want to let her talk about that.
Yes. Well, first I want to say, has anybody else found this idea of kindness super helpful? Because I have multiple times already. Just several different situations where it was such, as we've been talking over the last couple of years about that mantra of stay stable, be kind, that's been somewhat of a guidepost, right? And then really going into the frequencies of it in this month, I really believe it's helped me to the Reiki energy, and receiving that kindness has helped to remind me in the daily life of the idea of being kind in situations. And so I've had multiple situations over the last week where I could have been unkind. And so I know Colleen has been talking about being kind, as it means so many different things, but these are actually the idea of doing kindness to others. So I've had multiple situations in the last week where I could have chosen to go into those denser frequencies, the dual frequencies, and somewhat the other person, it was a little somewhat deserved. They were being unkind. I'm being completely honest. And I just had that realization, like, okay, no, just go into kindness. It's fine. I don't know what they're going through. I don't know their story. I don't know what's causing them to be unkind in this situation. And being able to change the circumstance, go into that frequency of kindness, be kindness, and then also embody that kindness as Colleen was going to talk about today, you know, really using Reiki on the fly, using that Reiki on the fly to allow it to come in that moment, not only make the kind action to the person, but also feel kind about it and feeling that inside of that kindness. So it's been really interesting because I feel like that is like, where I kind of go to in general. Like when I'm out, I try to be as kind as possible to people. But I feel like in those situations, both of those situations, I would have maybe acted a little differently, you know? And, you know, I'm still not an unkind person. I would have been kind, so I don't mean it that way, but taken the low road a little bit with it, where I could have gone into those denser frequencies of stress, busyness, you know, you don't know about my life type idea, and what I've got going on, those kinds of ideas. And so it's been really interesting to also observe myself and watching the Reiki energy around this healing, around this receiving, around this idea of going into the higher frequencies, and knowing that it's the Reiki energy supporting me in these timeframes, and what a difference it makes. Because even just jumping into those higher frequencies on the fly and using the Reiki energy also is healing for me. You know, it's like with Reiki, we are giving as we're receiving. And so, I'm sorry, receiving as we're giving. And so by making these kind actions, I'm also receiving. It's healing me. It's making me feel better, but not in the way that, like, oh, by being kind, it makes me feel good about myself. It's actually that the Reiki energy is helping me receive that frequency of kindness as I'm doing kind actions. And so it's been really interesting. And I 100%, even though it wasn't in the moment that I was equating it to this idea of the work that we've been doing in this share, but I 100% equate it to the work that we've been doing in this share. Like after taking a moment and watching those decisions being made and using Reiki energy in general to help support me in that, I just absolutely know that it's the work that we've all been doing together here. And so it's just really been amazing to watch, like how much it helps and how much receiving those higher frequencies is contributing more Reiki onto the planet and more of these higher frequencies. And Sharon, I'm not able to read your whole comment, but just that first sentence about family being unkind. And that was one of the situations. It's an extended family member. But that was one of the situations. And I thought, you know what? Because I wanted to kind of go into those dual frequencies around it and get all in my stories in my head and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to act out of kindness here. And in this situation, it was kindness to the other person. As we know, that we talked about last week, sometimes it is kindness to ourselves. Sometimes it is, you know, drawing a boundary. Sometimes we know it is saying things to what need to be said. But what Colleen is talking about is just during this time of year, there is the dual frequencies are very exaggerated. There is love and joy and kindness and the idea of peace and community and giving to each other. And then there is stress and busyness. Maybe the holidays are challenging, and so there's grief, sadness. So there's all of these dual frequencies that are very prominent at this time of year. And, you know, depending on how this time of year is for you, you can be in any of those at any given point. And I'm just going to use the example of, you know, being in the idea of stress and busyness. Let's say you're a parent trying to make Christmas happen for your kids. Just using those examples. I know not everybody celebrates Christmas, so I honor that. But just using it as an example, during that time, can you raise into the higher frequencies that's within that duality? So when we're talking about duality, we have light, dark, we have lower frequencies, higher frequencies. So we use Reiki energy to lift into those higher frequencies, even in stress, even in busyness. There's an account that I follow that yesterday posted something that said, like mantra of the week. Even in my busyness and stress, I can take the opportunity to find one point of joy in each day. And so I thought that was really interesting, that it is not just in our communities that we're talking about. It's, this was another spiritual account. And so, in all sorts of ways, people are trying to not just raise into the higher vibrations for themselves and out of the denser vibrations, but also, again, adding more of that onto the planet, because as we are able to hold the higher frequencies, we are able to contribute that onto the planet, but also into our communities. Just as the kindness example, by being kind, acting kind, embodying kindness, I was able to, have that light around me, which, again, as we talked about last week, does have that ripple effect. Was she able to be slightly more kind by being kinder to her? Was that idea of embodying kindness, kind to the person that was, shine that light onto the person who is standing next to me. And I also realized that sometimes during this time of year, that's not possible, that there can be a lot of grief during this time of year. And so the most kind thing you can do is some self-care, that even that, taking care of yourself during this time of year, that also brings the higher frequencies onto the planet, because through those actions, you are having some healing work. You are taking care of you, which in turn, it's like those quotes, if you heal yourself, you heal the world. And so during this time of year, even just the kindness to yourself, that those actions of self-care also adds the higher frequencies onto the planet. And that is important as well. So, just the understanding that there is the duality, and also that you can go into the frequencies of joy. And, I think about the idea of actually observing Christmas through my 6-year-old eyes, she is like, one of the things that she came to the planet with is just pure magic and childlike wonder and curiosity. I mean, it is like some of her innate traits. And can I view the holiday lights? Can I view, these magical parts of the season, regardless of how you celebrate it? Can I view those things through her eyes and go into that joy and that idea of that childlike wonder with it? And does that also help with the frequencies, those higher frequencies onto the planet, those light frequencies that are a part of Reiki energy? And does that help another person? That helps myself? Does it contribute that into our family? And while this time of year is very busy for us, it's also her birthday tomorrow, so it's extra busy for us. Can I, kind of release those denser frequencies, those lower vibrations of stress and busyness, and go into the higher frequencies of joy and wonder, and the idea of what that kind of means and feels like to her, and look at it through her eyes. And what Reiki is helping us do, because it's pure love, pure, it's spiritually guided life force energy. We know that it contributes to stress reduction and relaxation and all of those kinds of things. How do I use the Reiki energy to do that? How do I use the Reiki energy for myself, which in turn contributes to it for her, which in turn also contributes it to my husband, to the family, to the classroom that she's in, all of those places. And then, not including the public places that I'm in, just when I'm out and about. So, Colleen, I'm sure you have things to add around that, with the duality. And I know you were going to talk about some skills. How do you do that? That's the other thing. I know I've felt this group. I've felt this community in those times,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking that as you were talking about, well, one of the ways I do that is I'm here every week with our community, and we're all doing that and using Reiki. So the energy of Reiki holds all these different vibrations. To me, I see them as actual, like they're the electromagnetic fields. So they actually exist, and we can receive them. And because the energy of Reiki is very specifically spiritually guided Reiki or universally guided life force energy, understanding that the word ki means life force, Ray means spiritually guided or universally guided. So it's specifically engaging with a higher frequency energy and whatever you call that. So realizing that some of these human qualities of our nature that we manage in the duality of the higher and the lower frequencies, the higher and lower consciousness, the realities also of the world. It's not all just about an idea of it. We live in these realities. So the Reiki energy very specifically empowers our cellular body, the epigenetics, with the higher frequencies, because our bodies are actually made of them. So when you take a concept like, how do I see this time, let's say if it's a really difficult time for you, and how do I see this with this other vision? How do I actually do that? It's one of the things that the life force energy of Reiki does. So as you are receiving it, it really can just help manage life. Stress reduction is huge. At first, when I heard Reiki as a stress reduction technique, I thought that just doesn't say it all. Like, it doesn't say it all. But now that I've been working with it for over 20 years and really engaged with it in depth, the stress reduction, God, it's, it makes a difference in everything. So the way my mind thinks always is, well, how? How do I get there? I have these concepts and I have these ideas of the parts of me I want to activate, live in, the consciousness I want to be aware of, the life skills that I have, et cetera. And of course, I'm still dual nature through all of it. And that means, there are times I definitely am going to deep dive into the lower frequency, even if I know I'm doing it. I'm just like, the feelings are there, the reality is there, it's hard. And, I can be aware of the idea of activating into another way of viewing it, but it doesn't mean that I can always accomplish that or choose it. There's times I can be aware I'm not going to choose it. So I always think in terms of how to. So what are some specific tools that we have? And I love that you put the Reiki trails in, Rebecca. And so you guys are also welcome to put in some of the tools you're using with Reiki. But that specifically, I wanted to talk about Reiki on the fly, because I know for myself, first of all, if I'm exceptionally busy, it's very difficult to take the time to like do a full hour Reiki session on myself or get to a practitioner to do it, that kind of thing. So Reiki on the fly is a real thing. I wrote an article about it, and I'll screen share it later or put it in the chat. But remembering the rituals we use to access Reiki, connect with Reiki, receive Reiki, share Reiki, deliver Reiki are techniques. And Reiki is not requiring any specific technique for it to connect with you. The techniques we use are for us, because we need to connect to the energy. The energy is already there. The higher frequencies are already there. That vitality of life force already is there. So then you think about the tools that you have. So if you realize that you can use Reiki on the fly, and what does that mean? So a lot of times I'll chant the symbols as I'm walking through my house or cleaning or doing something. I might do it for a minute. I might do it for a long time. I might use the music. I really like Reiki chants by Jonathan Goldman, Michael Baird, and Laurel Gaia. And it chants the Kododama. Kododama are the sounds behind the Reiki symbols. So the power symbol is Hokue. The mental emotional symbol, Eeki, Hoa Zehone, Aiko Yo. So those are Kododama, and they're sung in this CD. Well, probably it's streaming now, but with the Kododama. And so I'll even play that. You can get it on YouTube. And I'll play that just so I have the sound moving through the house, or I may chant the symbols, or I may think it's so on the fly that it's like, okay, Reiki on, like Mrs. Takata taught, Reiki on. There it is. And it can be that simple. There are tools that we use, as I started out with the World Peace Grid and the crystals. You can imbue objects with Reiki that will provide Reiki in your space. You could have even, one of these small stones that I have on my grid. I could keep that in my hand or in my pocket and have that on me. You can think the Reiki symbols, and they already start to work with you. And you can make it quick. You can make it short. One of the ones that I do very often is, this is Gasho. Bring my hands into Gasho, and I'll just stop. And sometimes, again, it can be for 1 minute, and other times I may stay in it for 15 minutes. But just take a moment and breathe and activate the symbols, and let them activate in my body and my hands, and most of all, my consciousness. So when I was writing the article called Reiki on the Fly, I was trying to explain the difference and how it works in the results, and why it's equally as powerful as even, when we go into the long sessions that take us into that deep Reiki state that also reduces stress. And one of the things I've really come to understand that happens with Reiki on the Fly, it activates insight. So you find that you have more of those kind of clarifying insights about what's going on in your day. Perhaps the insight is very practical, like it puts your priorities in order, and suddenly your to-do list is clear, and or you know where to go to do what you need to do, or the resources you need to find. Sometimes it can clarify like that. I find that I use it in, I get the best parking spots, something as simple and practical as that. It can also help clarify my mind if, like Robyn said, I had, you can go into story or difficulty or challenge or trying to figure something out. And sometimes you need to go into that because you're trying to figure something out. Like, what is going on in this situation? Or what is going on with me in this situation? And so you need that clarity. And so I find that those tools of Reiki on the fly, however it occurs to you at any moment, to activate Reiki in any way that you can, Reiki responds. And so that Reiki on the fly may clarify insight, or activate insight. And so you find even that you have more awareness of the serendipities of your day because it activates that, it orchestrates you into a more even flow. So I love the idea that how you put that in the Reiki trails. That is a great tool. And Reiki trails are simply activating your feet, activating a Reiki zone around you, and it'll just flow. And as other people walk into it, if they want to receive it, they would. If they don't want to receive it, Reiki always honors that for anybody, but it empowers those higher frequencies. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do on the fly with Reiki that make a difference. And then you also, of course, have tools that are also, a deeper experience of Reiki, where you're going to go into Reiki states. So self-Reiki. I do a lot of self-Reiki. I do a lot of self-Reiki on the fly. I'll just do self-Reiki, put my hands Reiki on wherever I am. And, I've learned I have to be careful because, suddenly in a group of people and you do this and they're like, what's wrong? So, I have to pay attention to where I place my hands if I'm in a group. But self-Reiki is something that I can do doing anything else I'm doing, watching TV, when I'm falling asleep, when I'm trying to stay asleep, go back to sleep. It's something that, like, even sitting here, I always have Reiki activated as I've got my hands on my body, and I just use it that way so that it's this continuous flow. So are those symbols beyond level 2? No, I was talking about the level 2 symbols. And actually, to be honest with you, with Reiki 1, it's still all the same thing. I'm talking about the symbols, but Reiki responds to you anyway, just simply because you invite it. It really is this massive energy that, it's probably beyond all the ideas we have about the different ways to connect to it and receive it. And it's trying to show us that it actually can be simple, and that we don't have to work so hard at it, because that just adds another stress, another thing to do. So when you move it out of like, oh, I have to do it this way, into, oh, here I can use it this way, and then observe the results that it has for you and how it helps you daily and how it can help you, as we were talking about, through something like the holidays, that not for everybody, but there are plenty of people that this is a really difficult time. And so, how do you find it? And then the other thing that I think is important to always remember too, particularly in communities like ours, we are often very empathic people. And so not only do we have our own things that we're managing, but we also have to pay attention to the empathic stress that is around us and the things going on around us. So there's another tool that I use for either Reiki on the fly or also for a length of time. So creating a field of light around you with Reiki energy and realizing that Reiki energy and a field of it around you is like a filter. So it's different than a shield or a very a definite wall of protection. It's more like a filter. And as you're thinking about, if you turn on a light in a darkened room, the light illuminates the dark. So that field of light is the same. And so we'll take that same analogy to, the higher frequencies and the lower frequencies. Well, if that outside empathy that frequency manages to come in towards you or you out towards it, you have that field of energy around you that's like a filter. And it can help from when the external world feels like it's coming at you or you're picking up on the external empathic stress. But it also can be if you personally feel like you're putting it out there, you can help with that too, so that there's a filter. Like if I know I'm really struggling and maybe I'm picking something that, that's it's their fault or whatever, or I get into it, I also can have that filter so I'm not impacting that situation. And, I'm like anybody else. I can be irrational, like I can make up a story that's I can have that. So, and I don't even mean it to be like demeaning like that, but I can also just have feelings that, I'm putting out there. And so I put that filter for that too. And then I can let it go and not have to worry about it either because the filter's there. So how do you do that? And that is also that concept of Reiki on the fly. Sometimes I'm in this morning before this, I went and had my teeth cleaned at the dentist. I'm sitting there and I'm like, is she done yet? Oh, and I'm just feeling all kinds of tension and having to make sure my hands aren't squeezed and things like that. And I had sent Reiki to myself, a little bit before that. But all of a sudden I thought, okay, wait, I can use Reiki. Just invited some of it to come in. And what happened is my mind switched from the how much I was disliking what was happening into I am really grateful that I have a dentist that's taking care of my teeth and that I get to take care of my teeth. Like that is something to be grateful for. So not only I still had the tension, but I observed how the result of that Reiki on the fly was that shift into Oh, okay, I'm grateful. I still wanted it to be over. Didn't change that. But it did bring in the other awareness. So anyway, to put that field around you, there would be lots of ways you could do it. You could think it, you can know any of the symbols, or you can just like, okay, Reiki on all the way around me. Make sure it's above you, below you, around you. But that's also what happens when we do our preparations and we're placing Reiki in the room. So I'm doing the exact same thing where I'm actively placing symbols on each side of me. It's what we do in the invocation. And we'll say that. We'll say, your light is shining through you, in front of you, and behind you, and on each side, and above you, below you. We use that a lot. And so you're placing that filter around you. Sometimes you need to think it and be on the fly. Other times it feels really good to actually draw the symbols and feel the energy you're placing around you and know what that feels like. You can do the same thing with the moving meditation that, some of you have learned, where you place that energy around you and, activate it into the earth. So just remember some of those things, and also remember it can be on the fly. You can take your time. We talk about those tools too, but today we really wanted to focus on your ability to activate these higher frequencies. And right now we've been really talking about November. We talked about gratitude and the frequency, and kindness and the frequency, and inviting it to come in and assist you, because they actually activate within you those same frequencies and make it easier to be in them or see them. Like I say, you can still have dual thought. So in the same way, sitting in the dentist chair, I still had the really wanting to get out of there and having to pay attention to my hands, but it did shift my whole awareness around, wait, this is just because I'm uncomfortable. It's okay. I'm really glad I'm here, and it's almost done, so.